I was brought up in a non-Christian family, never went to church, never read the Bible, never really thought about spiritual things at all. One of 4 boys, parents had breakups, so my mum mainly brought us up. I'm now a pastor in a church in Suffolk. I'm married to a beautiful wife called Naomi, and I've got 2 amazing children called Oscar and Caleb, who I love to bits. I'm a Spurs supporter. I love old classic cars. I got a Beetle called Bruce, and I just love to tell people about the Saviour that's changed my life and the God that I love. So my first introduction to Christianity was kind of weird because we had some Christian neighbours move in, and I didn't know anything about anything. No one had ever told me about Jesus Christ. And so when they started telling me about Jesus and how he'd died on a cross, to me it was all news. You know, no one had ever taken the time to tell me that. And it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. There's a dog about to eat me. And so yeah, I started going to church with them. They invited me to church. Felt like the most awkward thing in the world. I felt like I didn't want to be there. But I listened as the preacher talked about grace and salvation and what it actually meant to be a sinner. Never really considered myself to be a sinner at all. And it really made me angry as I heard people talk about the gospel, as I heard preachers preach. It made me really angry to think that somebody would think that I'm a sinner. I was a good person. I was well behaved. I never really acted up. I was polite most of the time. So I considered myself a good person. But as I heard the gospel, as I heard about sin, it really challenged all of those things. And about a year after I started going to church sporadically, I had an amazing thing happen to me which changed my life forever. And it happened in a toilet. Now most people, if you ask them how they became a Christian, they'll give you the story of they were brought up in a Christian home and read the Bible, and that wasn't my story. I got saved on a toilet. I'm not ashamed of that. But I was working for this business at the time, and I had this boss who wasn't particularly very nice. I remember going into the toilet just to get away from all of that, and just started to pray. And it was really weird because the only time I'd ever prayed before that was when my parents were about to divorce. And I remember lying on my carpet face down and just praying. I didn't even know who I was praying to, just that God would intercede if he was there. But on this day, I started by praying, God, would you change my circumstances? And it moved from that to, and I really felt like I was on my own at that point. I felt a bit silly praying. But as I prayed, I thought, well, I might as well pray that God would not only change my work's circumstances, but I really felt convicted in my heart in that moment that I needed him to change more than that. There wasn't enough just to change my earthly circumstances, but I knew I needed my heart dealt with. I knew I needed my sin dealt with, and so I asked Jesus to forgive my sin. And I couldn't believe the words as they were coming out of my mouth. I mean, they were alien to me. I knew what it meant, but I didn't know what it meant in the grand scheme of life and eternity. And I just prayed to God that he would forgive me of all the wrong I'd done. And I thanked him for sending Jesus to die for me. And I finished praying, and I opened my eyes, and there was no lightning bolt from heaven, but all I can say is when I finished praying, I knew that God was there. I knew that I'd been praying to a real God in a real place, and that he had answered that prayer. And I actually got fired the next day, so that wasn't a great start to my Christian life, but ever since then, God has just been doing incredible things in my life. And when I look back, I see his hand at work, and I'm amazed that he would love me. I'm a wretched, ruined sinner. I don't deserve God's love. I'm nobody special. But he loves me, and he sent his son to die on a cross for me. And I want people to know that it doesn't end there. My testimony is not just, my journey with God wasn't just that day. Ever since then, I've been able to talk to God in any situation, and I've known His help and I've known His strength, and I'll spend every day that I have breath trying to tell people that there is a God who loves them, and regardless of what they've done in the past, that He wants to forgive them, and He wants to know them, He wants to show them His love, and that there is something in this life that can be found that surpasses anything that you could experience outside of a relationship with Him.